Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you're all having a wonderful night tonight. Everything seems to be working just fine for sort of a impromptu stream, if you will. But while we're here, thank you for showing up. Let's go ahead and get to business. And by business, I mean shilling. Shilling the big gun slaps, as it were. They are the biggest sponsor of the channel. Now, a important update is that actually, let me pull that off real fast because they removed our 10% discount code and made it a 20% discount code. So if you're into stickers, into patches, into all sorts of nonsense, this is the autism keychain. I have autism and I will resist help. So if you're into that sort of thing, go ahead and check out gunslaps.com. Use code FT20 to save yourself now 20% off. And it's not a war crime if it's the first time. Exactly. All right. With that out of the way, let me pull that banner down. See how everybody is going. Yes, 20% for extra shilling. Exactly. All right. R2BA here in Cali. What's up, sir? Hop says muted. Am I muted? That would be awkward. Very awkward. Thanks for the troll, though. I appreciate it very much so. All right. Now, yeah, nobody uses keychains unless you're autistic, hence the keychain, Andrew. But tonight, we are going to be talking about some not necessarily happenings, but there is this channel that you may or may not be aware of. Let me pull that up here, called Sofit. This is apparently just some random gentleman who uploads clips of Matt Pranka, Mike Pannone, and a bunch of other gentlemen from their Instagram lives. So essentially, all of these clips are, you can see myself and some other gentlemen here as well, because he pulled some clips from my live stream. It's perfectly fine. You guys can clip out anything you want to. But essentially, there's some really good Matt Pranka clips in here. Really, really good ones. And then as I was setting up the stream, I had, yeah, Nick says I'm not muted. Thank you. Yeah, I figured as much. But no problem. Just responding to something in the back end. But essentially, there's some really good clips in here. Some stuff that I've been watching. I probably watched 50 or 60 of these so far. He uploads 2 to 5 minute clips of different gentlemen. Sometimes they're longer as well. But right when we were going, he sent me another clip, which is a CAG A squadron, the CQB training, which is very interesting. So this is a Delta operator doing some hostage rescue situation training. And this is actually filmed from Matt Pranka's point of view, as he confirmed later on. So now this is an hour-long video. Originally, this was going to be a fairly short stream going over a few of the better clips that are out there, kind of because he has a lot of really good input. And I think a lot of the things that Matt Pranka says are very important to hear. He's very aggressive in the way that he says things, and he doesn't have time for BS, so which makes him great for putting out information concisely and effectively. However, it's a double-edged sword because it can come off completely wrong in the wrong environment, which is what sort of happened a month or so ago at this point. Now, Matt has agreed to come back on at some point in the future. I believe he is still out of country doing his thing, but when he comes back, hopefully we will have him back on to discuss all of this stuff. So let me see here. I think actually, let's pull this off for a second. Is Richard, are you there, sir?
Yes, sir, I'm in.
Yeah, Nick says this stuff is super interesting, dudes. I've been watching tons of these videos at work. Yeah, I see them now that I've watched enough of them. They pop up on my recommendeds. So I click on the ones that look good. All right, let's go ahead and... Am I on the right one? No, I'm on this one. Let's go ahead and watch this first clip, and then we will go to the response. So let me make sure I get this backstory correct. So this clip that we're about to watch is, again, Matt Pranka doing some hostage rescue training with Delta guys. The oppositional force is local SWAT and police guys. So this is force-on-force training, hostage rescue, and you are, I believe, I haven't seen this yet, but I am told you're going to see Matt Pranka go in there and just blitz everything. Just incredibly fast. And then the second video that we're going to watch, the main one, is a response from a guy calling out his quote unquote bad tactics. And Matt, being Matt, was like, hey, why don't you come on a live with me and we'll discuss the tactics? So should be hopefully a very interesting conversation. All right. Are you ready, Richard?
Let's do it. Sorry about that. My my audio was giving me troubles. I had to exit out and come back in for whatever reason.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't like me.
I literally 5 minutes before the stream, why I was a couple minutes later, like a minute late, is because I had to reset my entire PC because it wasn't picking up my audio. So,
yeah, we should be good. I had a mild connectivity issue with my internet when I was joining in too. So if it cuts out for whatever reason, I will join back in. But other than that, hope everyone's having a good night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everybody seems to be having a good time. Jarrett Klein says, when are you bringing back Dugan Ashley? Whenever he wants, I guess. I don't have direct contact with him, so I actually contact Jonathan Picone, who then contacts Dugan. So I can get all the guys back on. I just, have to have a good topic or something to chat about or whatnot, even though those guys can talk for hours and hours on their own. So, Richard, let me know if you hear the audio.
Yep.
Okay, so obviously they just got off of a helicopter, so that's what you're going to hear, but let's just let this play out.
Jam, go. Stand up. Stand up. Back clear. Come here, you hurt? No. Walk around him.
So that is, you can probably tell, incredibly quick, incredibly fast, right? And that's kind of what Matt talks about with all the modern like CQB marketing BS, as he would put it. Those guys basically, they just run in and clear. Matt is on a mission in there. Once his gun jams, he gets out of the way and lets this next guy go, because of course they're using Simmunitions. Let's see here. Yeah, Higgy Shooting said Hop is going to hug Matt so hard. That would be a good time. That would be the only 1v1 I actually want to see. Yeah. All right. Andrew Vachon, before we even get going, incredibly generous. 1999 says, a lot of his info is great, but he generally lacks tact and can come off as incredibly abrasive to the point of being a jerk. Would love to take a class of his if I ever get the chance. Also, him versus Instructor Zero is goated. Yeah, I have heard that is actually very good, but I have not seen that. But he has a habit of ending people's careers. So thank you very much for the $20, Andrew. All right. Now, that video got critiqued by some people online. Why are you doing that so fast? Why are you being so aggressive? Because that entire thing, from the point of them getting off the elevator, or the helicopter, sorry, I think was 1 minute and 6 seconds long. So
it was rather quick, but I did see one thing that troubled me a little bit. The entry into the kitchen.
Yeah, I'm not. He's going to go over all of that.
Okay.
Because it's going to be, because there's an hour long. Let me pull this up. There's an hour long conversation between Matt and a gentleman critiquing him. So they are going to get into all of that. So yeah, speed of action, violence of action. Let's should we watch it? There's more people coming in every few minutes, so I almost feel like we should watch that one more time all the way.
Yeah, let's run through that one more time.
Then get into the discussion back and forth of Matt and this other gentleman.
I have a request. Can we do a playback speed slightly slower than one, or do you want to play at full speed?
We will play it full from the beginning, and then if there's like a section you want to go back to, we can go back to it because we got time.
Yeah. All right.
So let's pull this up.
Yeah, run the.
Everybody ready?
that.
Come out and jam, go.
Yeah, so right there, really, Matt only takes the lead there for the first two guys. So you want to go back to basically right when he comes inside, right?
Yeah, right through the kitchen entry. That
Well,
was
you
the
can watch
point.
this.
Yeah, from right here.
So you had a problem with that.
That as soon as the door swung open, the person did not present any threatening posture whatsoever, and sure, they may have had a gun, but that didn't scream I'm a threat to me.
Well, so I think as soon as well, this is in half speed now. So there
Okay.
is a gun. Matt has his light on and is now bringing it up to target and is going to engage him.
Long gun pointed the opposite direction.
But it's a guy in a hostage house. You're looking for a hostage, not a guy with a gun.
Correct.
So, and remember, this is not civilian stuff.
Yeah.
Their what is it? ROE is probably, if it has a gun, it dies.
Yeah.
So this is not like, for us, you can't just walk into a house and shoot somebody that's not threatening, right?
On the first run through it looked like it was just somebody in the kitchen that, might not have been a threat, but was just happened to be there. But now that I see that, did have a long gun, looking at it from the perspective, Yep.
So he has this is on half speed again. Opens the door, guns up, sees the gun, engages instantly, basically, right? I mean, there's no mistaking. That looks like an AK in his hands. I'm not sure exactly what it is. Something without a stock almost.
Yeah, it looks like an AK.
Yeah. Now, of course, it is an AK. So, of course, in this, he knows that that's like a dude. He's not going to just like kick him out of the way. He's going to very gently like, please get out of my way so I can continue on. So I don't know if he gets shot there, but he reacts to the shooter and then goes to shoot him, but then his gun is down. Because he's trying to shoot him right there. You can hear him try to pull the trigger on, the Simmunitions, and nothing's happening.
Jam, go.
So we can sit here and critique this all that we want, but Fokker 1138 says the part of the kitchen that bothers me is the guy did not turn to face the threat. He should have already heard the next room, the discharge, and he turns away instead of moving to engage. So you got to remember, there's a second door, as you can see here, that the gunman was pointed towards that door, not the back door that Matt entered. There's also a window in the kitchen that he could have been looking out of. So Matt was in one of the three entry points, and the guy just happened to not be looking at him at that point in time. Right. Because, I mean, there's literally, you have a window there. Or sorry, you guys can't see that. You have a window. He still can't see my cursor, darn it. So you have the back door, the front door, and then the window that he could have been looking out of. But
yeah, right. I didn't catch the there was another entry point on the backside there. I thought that was main entry point through the back, through the kitchen, and then into the...
Well, if we go back a little bit, you can kind of see here, there's the window by the kitchen. There's the front door. Matt is moving directly to this door. I don't know if he already knows that's where he's going to go in or whatnot. And again, there's an hour-long discussion on this minute clip. So we can nitpick it here all that we want.
But they already did for an hour.
They're about to do that for us, right?
Okay. All right, let's do that.
Dude, if Matt was available, I would love to have him on for this because it would be fun to talk about all this stuff. But I think he's going to be on at some point, and we'll just have a nice chat.
Yeah, I would definitely like to get him back on, but he seems to be a busy man.
And also important to note that the guys, the oppositional force, opposing force, whatever you guys want to call it, were SWAT and police, and I'm not sure what they were told to do, So we don't know about all that sort of stuff.
Correct.
All right. Now let's go ahead and let's roll this. Now this is an hour long. I don't know if we're going to play-by-play this entire video because otherwise we'll be here all night. All right. Probably skip a few seconds in here. There we go. Okay. Now, the gentleman on the bottom is a guy who made a video basically critiquing it, saying how this isn't what you should do, blah, blah, blah. And so, again, Matt is like, hey, let's have a chat about it live. And so, Matt is prolific for doing these Instagram lives that then get archived and put onto YouTube by other people. I kind of wish Matt would have all this on his own channel or like a hub channel for all of this stuff rather than just random clips for floating around. But if you can find all this stuff, it's really good info.
So does that mean that I should make a Pranka hub channel?
Well, maybe not Pranka hub, but something you could do. You could do that. You could make like call it like Delta repository or something like that, and just put all of these clips together, and you would get hundreds of thousands of views on the stuff.
I already know what the image would look like if I did it.
All right.
Right on. Well, that worked unexpectedly well. So
Right up.
So it should be, yeah, that's good. How are you doing, Bill? Good to finally meet you.
Same. I'm doing well.
I'm good, man. Always good. Yeah. So I think it'll be, I think there's nothing to it, man, but just to jump into, I have a feeling that an hour is going to go by pretty quick with this. You know, give guys some history for people listening. There's a video that was out on the internet. It was a training video from 2019 of CQB of one specific like hostage rescue hit, training evolution team hit on a single residence. You know, pretty straightforward. And it's been out, guys. It's been going around. And then Bill, you saw it. Somebody I think sent it to you, or how'd you come across that video?
Yeah, compadre sent it over to me.
Yeah, send it over to him. And then Bill, you did a critique video of it that had some pretty interesting, takes on it. I think some of them, obviously I don't agree with, and I think it at least warrants it. It's a decent conversation. So introduce guys, like I think I'll let you introduce yourself to everybody listening, because you haven't had you on before, and I don't think we really share a lot of the same followings, like in terms of the social media. And I'm definitely not up on YouTube the way you are. But who are you? And like background, as much as you want to give, or as little as you want to give.
Right on. Everybody, I'm Stoker, Bill. I've been called worse over the years. Just retired from the military. Been with my wife 27 years.
Can you guys hear that well enough? Because it seems like Bill's audio is a little low.
Yeah, it's a little low and seems a little choppy as well.
Choppy. Yeah, that is unfortunate.
I chew dirt and play out in the woods.
Right on. And that's where I think even in the video, you said you primarily focus on kind of survival stuff and like fieldcraft type things.
Yeah,
but I think before we, to have this conversation too, right? Because we're talking about, some of it's theory based, a lot of it is experience based. At least that's how I look at like kind of TTPs. So to have this, I'm not a big proponent of like, hey, this is my background, this is what I do. But I think when we talk about tactics, you have to, especially with some of the things that I have that you said from the video, we have to talk about like your backgrounds, right? Guys that know mine, I was in the Navy for 17 years. I did my.
Wait a second. Is he saying that background is important?
That's what it sounds like to me.
That does sound like it.
Last 9 in the Army, and my last, 12 and a half years were done as an assaulter at an Army Special Mission Unit, right? And that kind of, so for me, my entire career, from 95 when I was in a force platoon, it was that CQB, and it just kind of went to there. I got out, retired, still work an operational job, still have CQB as one of the medals that I have to maintain and continue to train, right? So that's my background. So for you, in terms of like your CQB, like where does that play in? Like where do your ideas and experiences come from?
So I mean, it goes back to mid to late 90s to early 2000s when I was still in the Marine Corps. By the way, I was a foreman. There were some good dudes of mine. Spent most of the time the first fleet anti-terror security team, or otherwise fake ass SEAL team out of Norfolk, Virginia.
Yeah. So Fast Company, right? For guys that don't know, and stop me if anything I'm saying is wrong. Fast Company is fleet anti-terrorism security teams. They basically are charged with having a response, but the focus is primarily, defensive in nature, taking and defending nuclear weapons, the arsenal, and then also there's a reaction team, right? It's like RTT or something like that, which is like a global response for contingency.
Right. So the majority of the battalion is pre-stationed at different locations, guarding nukes, doing refuel, defuel operations. The fast platoons did a rotation 6 months at a time to pre-position in either Italy, in Spain, or in Japan, and just kind of sat staged forward, ready to go one platoon at a time. Primary purpose would be for response to things like Nairobi and Kenya, those bombings, the Cole Embassy bombing. So there's a lot of reaction and support and defense that is.
So the Mad Minuteman, he comes up with a good point. Says, I can't believe people still don't get his point of pedigree and when it matters and when it doesn't. And then he follows up, example, Matt is relevant and he's a master shooting. Bill is irrelevant and he's not a top shooter. So in a lot of ways, I agree that that pedigree or skill set or accomplishments can have a huge importance on whatever it is that you happen to be discussing, right? There are times when it doesn't. There are times when it does. A lot of the times, I think Trench has said this a lot. It doesn't really matter if you were cool 20 years ago, if you were a great shooter 20 years ago. I'm trying to take advice from you now, or I'm trying to learn from you now, or I'm interested in what you're saying now. So I think a holistic approach to all of this is it is important to consider someone's background and where they are currently. And I think that more holistic approach is the more sensible one. Right. So the jokes about pedigree are people joking in that drunken live stream that Matt was going back and forth on that and misspeaking. Right. So I understand that Matt's point is much more, is much more nuanced than what drunk Matt was saying. Right. But we can still make fun of him for misspeaking. Right.
Plus, it's
Same
fun.
thing when I misspeak. Right. It's all fair game. Not that type of holistic. Not that type of holistic, but you get what I mean.
Probably a bigger role, if you will.
Okay. But responding to the embassies, right?
Yeah, typically responding to doing non-combatant evacuation operations of embassies. Like they didn't release who's down in Haiti right now, but odds are it's a fast platoon. When I was in, did our tour our deployment to Naples, and we did a short mission up to Gaeta to the 7th Fleet, which was kind of before any threats kind of took place. So it was.
I'm going to skip ahead just a little bit because let's try and get to the actual meat of this.
Yeah.
Team at NSGA Northwest.
Hitting targets and GY in any of those jobs, like outside of the time you had it fast as an instructor and like a CQB team leader, I think you said in the video, like was any of that like operational, like hitting targets and GWAT or anything like that?
For GWAT, no.
Sorry, what's that?
Can you run that back? Did he just say?
Well,
tiny,
he's asking him.
Did he say tiny-headed or?
I think he's referring to something else there. He might have cut out for a second.
A spot opened up at the fast team, so
Fast, yeah.
I was able to make my way up there.
Okay.
And the whole time in communications and signals.
Okay. So ever in any of those jobs, like outside of the time you had it fast as an instructor and like a CQB team leader, I think you said in the video, like was any of that like operational, like hitting targets and GWAT or anything like that?
For GWAT, no. I got out in late 02, early 03. I was still on terminal leave. So really the only operational experience outside of institutional going into operation was all from my deployment with Fast Company to Europe.
Okay. So that's for me, that's like an important thing, to, especially we're gonna talk about the video now, is that there's with the internet, right? And especially YouTube, there are a lot of guys, like I would historically refer to this stuff as like everybody on the internet has very, very high opinion, right? And they bark it out loud. Video you made, production value of the video you made was super high, right? It's good. Kind of a video breakdown, audio and all that stuff. But the opinion's good, and it, nothing to get you look the part, beard, everything, right? It's so when you start talking like that, it's very easy for guys. What I hear, guys that say that they put stuff out and then everyone takes it as gospel. So I think it's important to kind of, when you start to dig into some of the experiences, because our experiences drive everything, right? It's going to drive our opinions, especially when it comes to tactics, I think, right? Mine is based off of what I've done, right? So anytime I have guys like in the tactics world that are telling me, hey, this will never happen. When it's like, okay, but I've seen it happen 500 times. So how does it never happen, right? Because there's differences, right? Like what happens in the schoolhouse. And I think we came up, for me in the early 90s, kind of Force Recon held the keys. We talked about this in a phone call, the keys to kind of CQB training, right? In that shoot house. And that information was shared. And I think at that time, a lot of it came from, I think the Delta Platoon, LA SWAT. What?
Old Dick Morchenko.
Oh yeah, no, that was like, yeah, that's SEAL Team 6 stuff. But I think
Don't say that I'm not fast. Okay? Don't say that I'm not fast. I'm about to end this man's whole career. All right. Back to the video.
we had a very system, it's points of domination, CQB, with Hall Boss kind of at that time it was called initiative based tactics. And I think it's for the last place I worked, we were really consistent with a lot of those things in terms of points of domination, right? And how we did business, right? So for the video that we're going to talk about, right, that was a initial hits, kind of like warm-up hits, daytime, just team hits. So I kind of read through some of the comments on the videos, and guys are like, well, you could have a helo circling around and kind of sneak in and all this shit. It's like, no, you couldn't. You would never do that. You'd never inoculate them to noise. One, it's a hostage rescue, right? Time is of the essence. We don't get to decide where the hostages are being held. Can't drop a hawk on the X, which is what we would want to do. We want to park them all right out in front of the door. So it had to be a Y landing, which happened to be, hey, we're 200 meters away, 150 meters away from that target. So now it's closing that distance and stealing that time back because we gave up surprise. So now we're leveraging speed as the initial assault. One of the things I want to ask you, because it comes up.
Now, before we get into that, again, there's now like an extra 100 people here. So we should probably just really quickly go through this again. It's like 30 seconds. So we might run through this video a couple times. So at the beginning, they hop off of whatever they're on, the little bird or whatnot, run up this hill towards the house. Oh, sorry, it's still in 0.5 times. Get that back up to normal. And then that's about it for Matt, because that is Matt. That is Matt that you're seeing in the video. His gun gets jammed, and then the rest of his team follows in behind. So that's what these guys are in reference to. And we'll probably watch that a couple more times as they're talking about it, and then flip back between the two as Matt gives his explanation. The Bill gentleman gives his critique.
A few times in the video, do you feel like that video, that training event was scripted?
Only in as much as anything that I've ever done has been scripted. Like you go on plan, you have your op order, and you go through all your concept operations, and everybody knows what their job is going to be going in. But outside of that, I don't think so.
So the way that kind of evolution works is there's a series of targets. They're all over the place, right? They're probably 60 to 80 miles within our central hub, which is usually an airport that we're launching from. The way that the level of planning is literally, you're on a matrix. Hey, you're up. You're on 9-2. You're going to this target. You look at the LZs. It's a plain side debrief on the top. Pass out GRGs. Everybody puts them into their sleeve. And then you say, hey, this is where we're landing. As we go out, we're going to look for a breach on whatever, the north side. And then it's really, though, as the situation unfolds, like in this one, you make decisions on the fly, right? So
if I'm getting the gist of it there, they didn't really know what the house looked like, only that there are people inside, there's a hostage, you don't know where. They know that they're going to have to land like 150 yards away, make the run, but they haven't been in there before, which does add a level of dynamics to it, I guess, where you don't actually know where you're going to be fighting, which is kind of cool. So for very high level training for these sorts of guys, very cool.
If we're approaching it, the first comment you kind of make, it's like a wide landing, and then we're sprinting to the target, which for me, from an operational standpoint, that is 100% doctrinally correct.
Yeah.
Right? It's a wide landing, and we're running there. Now, what we saw was they heard the helo. They know they're coming. The guys, the role players that we use are actually law enforcement officers, right? So they have some training. Those guys were, I think it was a mix of there was one military guy who was the puck, and then everybody else is kind of cops from their SWAT team that is aggressing us. As we come up, the first thing you say, right, it's like, hey, we're shooting sims, but they're not really sims. Why do you think we're not shooting sims?
To be honest with you, as it progressed a little bit further, so I'm sure that there's.
So this is a thing that a lot of the times people who make videos, as soon as they have criticism, they start to like melt, right? They instantly start, because it's like the first claim that the guy made in the video, right? They instantly start to melt, fade away, back down. Well, actually, whatnot. It's like, well, you edited the video. So if at any point before you click that publish button, if you didn't think that that point was correct, you probably should have taken it out. Right.
Yeah. I'm confused by the whole.
Right. Well, and this is why people in the chat are saying like, yeah, Matt is annoyed to be here, but he's like, this is really good for him to do this. So let's roll that back just a little bit.
Why do you think we're not shooting sims?
To be honest with you, as it progressed a little bit further, so I'm sure that there's more Simmunitions out there than I've had experience with.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The 5.56 sims now, like UTMs and sims, those were actually Simmunition rounds, right? And it's a marking round, a paint marking round. They fly good. I think the sims, it's basically a blue bolt. You drop it in, and you can pretty much accurately engage to about 70 meters, and then wind and stuff starts affecting it. So it was sims, right, coming up, and what I saw is I saw a guy milling around, right? In the camera angle, the little Insta camera that I'm wearing on my head has a pretty, narrow field. It's actually narrow. It's more narrow than your eyes, right? If you figure your eyes are about 135, this sits at about 110. So it's a little bit deceiving, but the first shots I took were at about 30 meters, right?
So we can actually just, through the power of having both these videos up at the same time, this is right when he starts to, maybe a few seconds back, right there is where he starts to engage the guy at the back door here, right? And that looks to be, it's difficult to tell on a GoPro because like GoPros make everything look farther, or any sort of wide action cam makes everything look further because it's stretching out the edges, so it's pushing away that center. So 30 meters sounds about right.
A little bit of a fisheye effect, but you can also see the people standing over there, so you can use that as a gauge of
Right. So yeah,
roughly
just the
the same.
guys on the right. I think those are just observers, I would imagine, seeing how everything
Well,
goes down.
No, those were hands up. Those were hostages as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think if you run it back through, I think if you look, a few of them were out there and they had hands up.
Go. Yeah, I think you're right.
Because the first two guys that he smoked on the outside were holding the hostages outside, and they knew that they had one individual that they needed a PID inside. That's why I thought it was a little risky running in when you knew you still had one person in there to rescue.
Well, but you have to, right? So that's like,
right.
What are you gonna do? Just
at
sit
that
there
point in time.
It's not a like a cops. You know, you see it in like movies, right, where they do the all the cars pile up around and then they just sit there and with a bullhorn and they yell to the guys on the inside. That's not what these guys are here to do. So
they're going to
level.
Yeah, they're into
terribly tactical. As a funny comment, he says, all I'm getting out of this is that Pranka is still a rafing douche canoe. But you didn't say he was wrong, though. So that's the thing. Like, people can call people names all the time, but if you don't tell me they're wrong, it's like, oh well.
I will say that he was wrong in one instance, and that was saying that I'm the most pro to a person here, and then following that up with, well, if you really want to learn CQB, go join the LAPD. That's the one thing that rubbed me the wrong way.
I agree. Well, and there's a lot of instances in that rubbed everyone the wrong way, but he's conflating different things. So if I could get him on to clarify his statements, that'd be fantastic. Before we move on, real fast, Sam Davidson gifted 1 focus trip member. Thank you very much. I don't know what that means, but I thank you for that. If you were the lucky gentleman who got that, go ahead and tell Sam thank you. Jonathan for $9.99 says, really loved your Tim Kennedy streams. Any chance you would collaborate with the Anti-Hero podcast? I don't have anything to add. Like, they're like a really high production value. They did all the research, all that sort of thing. I just made fun of a couple Tim Kennedy videos, right? So it's like Anti-Hero podcast, my show, right? So I don't think that they would get any benefit out of me coming on. I would get benefit off of coming on their show, but they do a great job. They don't need me for anything. And I just don't think I would help them at all. So, but it would be fun. They seem like nice
while on that topic, I do have the full trimmed down version of the full run through of Tim Kennedy's 360-degree shoot house coming out tomorrow on the Clips channel.
Oh, nice.
So if you guys would please give that a watch, that would really help us out.
That would really help me out. That difference of CQB versus what Matt is doing here is like night and day. Funny.
Being able to contrast the two that'll be nice.
BVH Nightmare for $5 says, HR hostage rescue is one of the not the human resources. HR is one of the few times in CQB where you transition from deliberate to dynamic. I will take your word for it, sir. I am a no pedigree, what is it, high opinion, low commitment person. So that sounds like a pedigreed statement to me, sir, but I will take your word for it. And thank you for the $5. Brian Isaacs for $2 says, what's your opinion on Tactical Hive? I've heard of them before. I literally, when you sent that, I looked them up, and it looks like articles and gear reviews and stuff. It doesn't, nothing on their website particularly interests me, but I would have to look more into it. So I don't have much of an opinion. All right. And let's go ahead and move back to the actual video.
And now talking about it, I could only, after the fact, we kind of asked, because we get debriefed on every single run, right? If it's paper, they take down all the paper, they bundle it up so you can see where the hits are at the end of the night. And then you get a debrief from a site controller based off the role players. And as we're running up, kind of the confusion we saw one guy outside, and you could see there was a line of people who are observers that are kind of standing off to the side. Seen it before. Hey, they're not in play. This guy's in play. Took some shots at him. He was actually supposed to be in the house, right? He walked outside to see when we were coming to kind of alert everybody. And what he sees is that's a 5-man team basically running, sprinting in a wedge.
That's just bad timing, right? You're like, okay, I'm gonna go outside and see where they're coming from, and then they're all running right at you. That is the worst timing possible, but that's actually fun.
And then the first 2 shots that I took hit him, and then as we got closer, he looked at the sight controller like, "Hey, should I lay down?" And then it was not only myself shooting, but there was a guy to my right, a little bit behind me, that also engaged him and ended up shooting him. So one of the things we look at like is in terms of like, I think a classic
M26 says, in 2005, I was at an urban warfare seminar with Israeli dudes who literally said 20% is an acceptable loss in a hostage situation. Is it sad that that's not that surprising? Yikes. 20%, that's acceptable. So one of you kids, sorry, bro.
approach, that would be way more deliberate, right? The way that target's set up, if you look at it, there is a wooden door for us to breach in the center of the house, right? But as the situation unfolded, we saw we have a wooden door in the center, or I can hit this target from one side of it and clear in one direction where I don't have to really be concerned about a PDC. I'm just going to push through it like a 2. Right. And that's
so that's actually interesting. So that was not the plan heading in there, but since the guy had opened the door for them, then they came in the side of the house. Interesting. So again, there's always going to be new people hopping in. So we will probably just play the first part of this over again real fast. It's 30 seconds long. So essentially they drop off at the bird. It's a 5-man team. They run up the hill about 150 yards to the house. They are planning on hitting the center door. Guy in the back goes down, who opened the door for them, because again, remember, they're trying to hit this door here. And so then Matt makes his way through the rest of the house, and at this point, his gun goes down because Simmunitions suck. So that is the visual of what they're actually talking about.
Kind of what I made the decision or chose to do. Right, as we come up outside the door, one thing, the first thing you kind of hit me on was what happened in that first room. Like, give me your opinion about what you saw in that first room.
So quickly, Main Street, past the door, taking out a target to your right in that corner. And then obviously, and it should be noted that when you only have the first person point of view camera, you have no knowledge and no perception of what anybody else is doing, right? And
it is
huge. And then immediately going into, I think it was a hallway, maybe a kitchen area.
Yeah. So let's go to the first room then, right? So first room comes in, right? I am a right-handed shooter. As I'm making entrance into the room, my thought process is crossing that threshold, I'm going to be as absolutely dynamic as I can be, ready to fight, connected to the gun and everything. So coming in, right, as soon as I looked into the room, it was a little bit on the darker side, right? I couldn't really see, but as I came back and I activate my light, I'm outside the room. I consider I've already entered the room. So that kind of made how aggressive that movement was going to be. But what I saw the door in the corner on the left, and I saw all the way the corner on the right to set myself up for success. If I go to my right, that is the easiest collapse for a right-handed shooter to traverse my primary sector, right? So when I came in, right, and this has been my experience over, hundreds and hundreds of hits, what you present to the adversary, they react to. And what I saw were guys, that dude did not believe what just came through that door. And he did not want any piece of it at all, right? And one of the things that you kind of reference.
So I wonder if the police officers, because they probably had no idea what was going to happen, because like the guy that walked out had no idea that they were just going to be full on sprinting at them. So the guy in the corner was like, okay, here's some shots. He looks outside, or he's like sitting in the corner, and then somebody just runs in and guns him down. Now, something very important about this that Matt talked about was the rifle light on his rifle during the day. Incredibly important in or around structures. So anybody who tells you you don't need a rifle light, you don't need a pistol light, just ignore them. It's retarded. Just anything they say after that, just walk away.
Wilson defense.
But anybody who says like you don't need a rifle, you don't need a
Or
pistol
Wilson
light
combat.
on your concealed carry, I'm like, okay, bro. If you're planning, the reason you're carrying that gun is to defend yourself, your family, and you're like, no, I'm just not going to have a light on it because I'll always be during the day or something. Just no, thank you. All right, carrying on.
Like failure drills, right? Are you talking about like you thought that I was shooting him twice in the body and once to the head?
To be honest with you, I don't recall the context of the statement.
Oh, it says you said like, oh, I don't know. He's shooting failure drills. I don't know why it is. Like our standard kind of like CQB thing is each target's 3 to 5 rounds, right? From an initial training standpoint, it's 2 rounds for every target, right? And that way you're able to, on a 4-man team, you can score targets like who all should have shot targets in this sector and that sector. So they kind of mitigate it with that. But as teams progress, right, and you're actually running with an operational team, kind of 3 to 5 rounds. So for me, I'm like, I am going to take.
So S. Terry says, I'm sure the OP4 heard the chopper landing 40 feet away from the house. So they were 150 yards away. Right. So if you hear a chopper go overhead and then you step outside and 5 heavily armed dudes are sprinting at you, it happens very fast. I think it's like 15 seconds from the chopper to him firing his first shots. Right. So there's not a lot of time. So as Matt said in the beginning, they would rather drop the chopper on the house, but can't. Right. So they have to land further away. So they're buying back that time by sprinting, by just being as aggressive as possible.
The only thing I see wrong with that scenario is every single one of the hostages outside are dead. Right? Because they had 2 guys standing out front watching the guys offload from the helicopter and charge directly towards the building.
What hostages are you talking about?
The ones that were outside of the building on the right with their hands up.
So those were observers. Those, as Matt said, those were observers.
So then why? Okay, I thought that the 2 guys.
Matt said specifically those were observers.
Okay, they really looked like I missed that part. Because the 2 guys that were standing out front guarding the doorway, they would have obviously seen the chopper landing, but yet they stayed outside to.
Well, no, the one guy by the back door. The one guy by the back door came out to check or something like that, because if you look at it, if we go back, and again, we're just like talking about it. So this is where the chopper lands, right here. The house is way up here. So from inside the house, you may not have been able to see. So the guy goes out the side door to see where they're moving in from. Because again, they don't know if the guys are going to circle around to the right, circle around to the left, come straight up the middle. When he comes out, like literally less than 15 seconds later, like 12 seconds later, 13 seconds later, he's already engaging the guy who stepped outside to see where they're coming from.
And is there not 2 guys there? Is there not one right in the doorway and then one on the back side of the doorway?
No, there is just, so if we play this, there is one guy at the back. You can see it's very blurry. There is one guy. One guy.
He went down. Okay.
Yes. There's one guy essentially right here, and there's a second person holed up in this room right now. They have no idea what just happened on the outside.
I thought that there was another one right next to that guy there on the ground.
I only see one guy.
Okay.
And then if you back it up 5 seconds, you can see the observers in this group here.
Yeah.
And so as soon as that guy steps out, like literally the guy is like a foot away from the door, and Matt has already fired on the guy. He goes down. Matt sees the open door and is like, okay, I'm just going for it.
Oh, that's a chair that I see there. Okay.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
It's real grainy on my end.
Well, it's I think this is in 360 or it's in 480p. Woohoo. But yeah, it's not particularly great. Sorry.
The kind of highest percentage shot at all costs. You know, I'm looking for center mass, you know, based off the attitude, and 3 to 5 rounds is how I'm going to kind of engage it. So when you come in to the right, and the reason you kind of dinged me on it, you said he just goes straight to the door, right? That was a small room, right? That room was probably 10 by 10.
Yeah.
And what you don't see is I go to the door. What I look and see at that door is I see the rest of the team is on my left side, and I see a door that opens where they all are. So that cues, hey, I'm going to underarm assault, open this door up, get it out of the way. We need to get a foothold into this house, right? Didn't know, it's unknown floor plan, didn't know shit that was in there. And the very next thing, we go in, and it's a guy in the kitchen. And you kind of, to jump to the back of the video, you made a statement about one thing you don't like is the military training push guys where you're always going to win, right? And you talked about when you did your final kind of FTX for your CQB training that you were going up against the instructors, right? So why do you think it's like, have you had training evolutions where you didn't win?
I mean, outside of Hell Week and CQB school, it depends on what you.
Well, so there is a gap here between the average Joe, which there is no problem with whatsoever, the average Joe person, right? And then what Matt does, right? So Matt is being very pointed. You know, it's like, have you ever trained in this style? And the guy is essentially saying no, right? So like me critiquing this video, absolutely nonsense, right? I can like in my head, I can think about, oh, are they doing this because of this or whatnot? But that's very surface level, right? The gap between these two gentlemen is like extreme.
Yeah, I have no pedigree to be critiquing it other than from what I see as things that are questionable. Like, for instance, the guy in the kitchen that just heard gunshots at the back of the house, but was facing the complete wrong direction on the entry point.
Constitute as a win.
Yeah, so that one there, I'm not sure of, because you got to remember he has 2 entry points, so he doesn't know if they're coming through the front door and side door, and so essentially you pick a direction, I guess. Like if I was sitting inside the house, like I guess I pick a direction of whichever place. Like for me, I would think that I would point to the closest place that I had heard, you know, Simmunitions from. I think that's what I would do, right? But if you're like, but what if the other buddy in the other room is like, hey, you need to watch that door, right? We don't know any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Also, they are not trained. The guys inside are not trained. They're just local police, local SWAT guys, right?
Right, but I would hope that if after they just heard 5 to 9 shots come from one direction, and
well,
you know that
it's not quite as bad as that, because the first shots come basically from the front. So if I'm standing inside the front door of the kitchen, they're coming from the front of the house essentially. Where you should know it is right here, right?
Yeah.
Because he's shooting inside the house.
Yeah, at that point in time, the guy
on the other side of the door, right?
Yeah. The guy in the kitchen should have spun around right then.
What might have happened though is, got to remember, there are 5 people right behind, or 4 people right behind Matt. So if you're sitting on one side of a door and you hear 5 heavily armored dudes run into the room next to you, he might have been turning to get into the other room to take up a better position, and instead just got caught halfway.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
people have self-preservation, right? They don't just want to get shot.
I guess, but if they have self-preservation, then why put yourself in a bullet tunnel funnel to begin with?
Well, correct. Yeah. I mean, he probably shouldn't have been there to begin with. That looks like a bad spot, but he might have been coming to help. I think he might have gotten caught halfway, because if he was coming to help the other guy, then he hears him get taken out. He hears 5 people get into a room. He's like, oh, shoot, I got to turn around and get out of here. And then as soon as he does that, because Matt's just going fast, Matt catches him, right?
That could have been. We don't know. We don't know either way. I think the thing to do would have been to have him in the back corner of the dark room that he passes through after the kitchen. So that way your eyes have affected to the bright light and then back down to the low light. There's multiple objects in there, multiple chairs. You're not just standing in a well-lit kitchen with your back turned to somebody who just marked to your buddy.
Realistically, that was the worst possible place for that gentleman to be, whether they came through the front door or the side door.
Yeah, it didn't matter which way they came in. It was bad.
Right. And if Matt doesn't get him, the guy behind him is getting him, right?
Yeah.
All right.
There's certainly lots of hard lessons learned, you know.
Yeah, but I know for me, right? So one of the principles of how we train, right? If I get shot with Sims, I'm reacting to everything as reality, right? You shoot me with Sims, am I disabled? Absolutely not. I'm going to continue to push my agenda on you. You know what I mean? So like for me, yeah, we win. I have won every fucking training event I have ever done across my entire career. Right? We don't ever pull off the target with not all the targets engaged or not getting the PC if it's a hostage rescue. So I think it's like part of me agrees, like you want training to be difficult by all means, right? You want it to be difficult and challenging. But have you done, I think if for the way that place looks at training, you know, because you mentioned too, like not one, you said no casualties. Where does that happen? Right? Are you talking about in training or in reality?
So both. So
in reality, like almost every time, there's no casualties. Like that's the goal, right? Is reset can get. Yeah. But it's funny, you know, when guys hear that, where does that happen? And I'll tell you, for the thousands of hits I've gone on, like 98% of the time, there are no casualties on our side. That is the goal. So it happens quite frequently. And I think it's that mentality is kind of, it's like a nascent, like underdeveloped mentality that, oh, we're going to take casualties. Where I don't think anyone trains like that.
That's right? Never accepted, right?
Yeah. No, I don't think it is. But I also don't think it's, you know, for the same reasons. Like I don't practice injure shooter drills, right?
So some people in the chat might be a little confused. Like when Matt's talking about doing this stuff, like he's not just talking about like training things, right? So when he talks about like 98% of the time coming away with like without a casualty, like that's not entirely joking, right? That's not talking about training entirely. BVH Nightmare for $5 says, in scenarios, sometimes role players get told where to be, which is true. Sometimes not a lot of freedom of movement. So yeah, I mean, again, we don't know what the guys in the building were told to do. We don't know what sort of information they had. We know that Matt said that their original plan was to go through the front door. However, once the guy came out the side door and it was already open, he had already taken that guy out. He decided, nope, we're all going in there and we're going to clear it in one direction, right? And they did not know the floor plan. They don't know how many people are in there. I believe they know it's just one hostage or something. So, yeah, but good. Again, there's lots of things that we don't have. Like we don't have the plans or the debriefs for all of this sort of stuff, which would be cool to see, right? So that we kind of have all the information possible, but we're probably not going to get that. Andrew for $1.99 says, remember, Op4 was expecting them through the front. So I know that Matt said that he was expecting to go through the front. That was the original plan, but I don't know if Op4 was expecting them to do that. I mean, possibly that would be the main entry point, I guess, until that guy from the inside stepped out.
It's not a thing, honestly, in my mind. because I think you can practice shooting strong hand only, weak hand only. Like from a practical standpoint, that makes sense. It's a skill, but this idea where what I always often see with the tactical world, and maybe you've seen it, you start layering all of this kind of nonsense on top of your training, especially if it's a scenario based training, to where you're not doing training. The whole training is just contingency, right? Like you've seen it, right? You tape your hand up and put fake blood on it, right? Those are just modifiers that don't make any fucking sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, now I gave you something to do after this iteration. When we move past this, now you get to go clean yourself up for the next evolution, right? Because I don't think that's a thing, right? And having seen guys, that take rifle rounds to the hands and shit like that, I don't see that training as like being valuable in terms of like, do you think that stuff is like those types of contingencies are good to go, like with training?
I would say one should be cautious on if you're going to run whatever contingency you want. If it's overly staged and then the value is gone, right? If you have to stop camera, we got to go set something up. Now now you're injured. Let's get you wrapped up. Like you just lost everything. So I would not disagree that doing.
So Tristan wanted me to read his comment here, so I'll pull this up. He says, Sims are not loud, and those protective helmets significantly reduce your spatial awareness. It's not that complicated. I have done Sims training with cops many times. So I'm not aware of the ins and outs in Sims. I imagine they're, of course, not as loud as live fire because it's not the same thing. If whatever powder charge that they're using is like 1/4, 1/10 of what it is for live fire. For the marking rounds. So I'd imagine that it is quieter, but I think you would still hear where it's all coming from. I think.
Just the action noise on a bolt cycling on an AR-15 is like 110 decibels, I think.
It can be quite loud. So, I mean, it's loud. It's obviously not as loud as live fire. That can be like 150, 160, depending if you're using a suppressor or not. But no, I get what you're saying.
Strong hand, weak hand shooting, you're kind of getting after the same things in a fundamental way as opposed to stage something and then going after.
Yeah, I think a lot of times the fundamentals aren't there and guys want to start layering stuff on it so that's how they think the training is valuable, but the foundational stuff isn't there to get it. And you mentioned, right, about your instructors, fighting your instructors, right? And they know your tactics. So with that being said, like in those training events, how did you guys fare against your instructors?
Oh, not well.
Right. How do you think those instructors would fare against like a troop of Saber Squadron guys assaulting and they know what we're about to do?
Not well. Like whether or not you as them.
So it is kind of weird to critique somebody's video, and then when he asks you, like, hey, how do you think they would fare against us? Him to be like, oh, no, they would fold. Right? It's like, well, why'd you make the video in the first place?
Yeah, that I don't understand that, but I do kind of see where he's coming from as far as saying, well, why would you stage it? Because that's why I thought I hate to keep coming back to the guy in the kitchen, but I believe someone likely put him in that position. It makes no sense from any other tactic standpoint to have it in the most well-lit room.
I mean, it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to me whether that individual person made a mistake or the person setting them up in there made a mistake. That doesn't really matter to me. Because that's like I don't know who to blame for that, right? Because what I'm saying there is Matt opened the door for the rest of his team and then engaged the guy.
Right.
The guy being in there is kind of like that's his fault essentially.
Right. I was
whoever
just
set him there. That's his fault. So
yeah, I was just that was one thing that had stood out to me as a potential issue from the first run through, and then when the gentleman here on the bottom said it was staged, that was just what had
Right.
looked.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing though, is at least according to Matt, not by them. So staged. I mean, the whole thing is staged, of course. Like it wasn't
Right.
just some random gathering of two people. Like, hey, I think there's some cops with Simmunitions in there. We have our Simmunitions. Let's go fight each other. Like that wasn't what happened. Of course, it's staged, but the positioning of that guy specifically is kind of bad. Hey, have a good night, Trench, and I hope you have a good hike tomorrow, sir.
Them is op 4 or
Yeah. Because what I suspect happens, right, is the instructors are like shooting through little tiny ports, right, or bladed off on the thing. Where I get it, right? That's in my mind, like that's entertainment, right? They're just dialing up the suck factor, because if you're completely bladed at it, right, and I shoot you through the door jamb, it reacts. But with Sims, it doesn't, right? You can get behind a couch and have your gun up there and shoot that, and you think you're gonna, okay, yeah, hey, you shot me. It's like, dude, you were dead from when I was outside the room,
right.
because those rounds come through the couch, right? And that's something that we see, a lot of, right? That's why I think you like to have either professional role player companies or like other trained guys, like a SWAT team that, especially a full-time SWAT team that thinks they're good. That's like, hey, we got this shit down. And we're like, that is what we want. I want confidence level to be up, right? And then now you just react to what we do, and we're going to react to what you do, right? And they're kind of brief, like, hey, because you made a comment too. That's why I asked if it was. You said no one's wearing a mask, right? Well, every role player there has a mask on.
Okay,
but as an operator, never once did I wear full face protection. I wore exactly what I assaulted in. Right, and
that's got to be painful, man, to take a round in the cheek or the chin or the nose or something like that. Like, ugh.
I've been shot by paintball in the winter before, and let's just say it will break skin and leave scars.
Oh yeah. I think we had Matt Landfer on a couple weeks ago when we were talking about the Tim Kennedy TV show, and he has scars from Simmunition training. So no, very real. And yeah, to do that inside of a building, I mean, yep. I would be nervous. I would be the guy wearing a mask.
Yeah, I probably would be too. Although I would really, really like to eventually get a hold of Zia from Polanaj Tactical and see if we could maybe get our hands on some of those Simmunitions to play around with for an event.
Oh, that could be cool. Do a Simmunition event. I would love to do, just purely for entertainment, a GunTuber 1v1 Simmunitions event. I think that would be hilariously fun.
That was my idea, is to set up something like that. We would have to do it in tiers, obviously, like, A tier, B tier, C tier.
I don't know how to. We'll talk about that later. Well, this video is long enough as it is. Yeah,
not to derail, but I did want to throw that out there. I do think it would be fun to try and do some Simmunition stuff one time.
That's where I think the
Oh, here we go. Yeah, Laska Live says 1v1 Pranka with Sims on Rust. I would not want to be that guy if Pranka was ever at an event like that.
the difference level between what you would see in CQB at Fast Company or even Force Recon or Marsa, right? It's your ORM, your operational risk management, the matrix wouldn't allow you to do business the way that we do it, right? So you put the face shield on, you put on protective gear and all this shit, and we just didn't. You'd never do that, right? And Ben, you do take rounds in the face or whatever, but if it doesn't hit your eyes, you're fine. It stings a little bit, but it's just it's a modifier. But for us, I think it's important. For me personally, when I'm doing CQB or any tactics, I want it to be as realistic as what I'm going to bring to the fight, right? Obviously, I'm losing recoil. I'm losing maybe a little bit of distance, on my barrel because I don't have the suppressor on. So I've got a little bit better maneuvering and shit like that. But everything else is pretty similar. So just to kind of clear that up, because I think towards the end, it got to where hold on, I'll get to that in a minute. All right, so the first room, then we go through that, and you said, hey, why would somebody be in the kitchen? Have you ever been a role player before?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you sit in a role player, right? How long do you think guys like stay alert and aware?
Well, you certainly become aware when you hear a helicopter landing.
You do, right? Yeah. You do hear the helicopter land, but what do you think those cops think that approach is going to look like?
I would be concerned about where it's coming from, right? And then I would try to
Right.
get in a posture, not cupcake and
Yeah.
lollipop and naked bacon.
So I think the guy in the kitchen, if you look at it, he was covering what he perceived was the main breach, right? And he's probably told not to be in that room because there was nobody in that big room, the living room, because if we explosively breach in there, so I think he set up on the door. And as we
Okay, so that makes sense. So the original plan was to breach into that main room. So of course, to not kill the role players, you can be anywhere but that big room, which is why the guy is at the back of that big room, not in there, and he's in the kitchen area.
That makes sense now, because if they were actually going to use an explosive breach charge to enter, they don't want to injure one of their police guys.
Well, yeah, you don't sign up. I mean, getting the opportunity to do like force on force versus these guys, very cool. I would take the opportunity if I ever got offered that to be one of the role players, because like, this is fun. I'm just gonna do what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna get shot a bunch. Like, who cares? We'll have a good time. But yeah, you don't sign up to die though. So
Bring that up.
I'm gonna bring that back up. So again, for all the new people here, this is the video in question. This is Matt Pranka. This is his perspective. Getting off of a little bird, they insert about 150 yards away from the building. Their original intention is to take down the main door via breaching. However, one of the role players on the inside opens up a door to see what's going on. So Matt takes that guy down and then takes advantage of that open door to clear the building normally instead of breaching that front door, which is why nobody's allowed to be in that big room. So I think it is, we'll look at the timer, but this is approximately 150 yards away. They get off, they sprint there. I think it's like 12 seconds before they engage. Seconds. So also important to note there, that might have been missed. Let me just pull this. So remember that Matt is not by himself. And as he says here, there are 4 people to the left of him. So when he swings open this door, all of his buddies can now engage this guy as well. So it's all you can see here is Matt, but there are 4 people right behind him. And so what's funny is he might have actually thought that that was his buddy coming in the door, and then sees, the Delta guys running in there, which is quite a bit different. That's a little bit of a shock. And so, of course, nobody's in this main room where people probably would be realistically, but to not kill them via an explosive breach, nobody's allowed to be in that room. So
yeah, that makes complete sense now. And the retarded stuff I was saying earlier, yeah, that completely makes sense. I have seen and participated in a couple of SWAT door breaches and shape charge breaches. They are quite violent, especially if you mix up the charges and you grab the shape charge for the solid oak door and you happen to put it on a hollow interior door.
I would hope that they wouldn't make that sort of mistake, but I mean, you can read about like accidents happening and whatnot.
I witnessed one firsthand. It was very, very interesting.
Was it local PD?
No, it was SWAT, and I was a part of the. We'll discuss that later on. I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't want to be.
Nick, no, you're good. Nick for $10 says, "I'm just happy to be here, bros." That's right. If I was ever a role player, I'd be like, "Oh, I'm just here to have a good time, not a long time." And then William Mitza for $4.99 says, "GunTuber Force on Force Wild West Cowboy Roleplay." You could probably get Simmunitions for revolvers, but I don't know what the point of that would be. It would probably just be Glocks and ARs. But no, thank you for the $4.99 and the $10, Nick.
Come from the other way, it completely catches them off guard. right? So I don't really think he was like lollipop.
No, somebody in the chat says that the footage was Matt before Matt became Fat Matt or became Fat Matt, whatever. Matt is in very good shape. He just has a gut because he's like 45, 50 now. If you watch his training footage and whatnot when he runs drills, he is incredibly explosive and fast.
Dude's in good shape.
He's very good shooter. He likes to drink and he's got a bit of a beer gut, but he is still very fast and very explosive.
For his age, he is in his prime.
Actually, I'll pull it up. I've been watching some training courses with Ben Stoker and some with Ben Steger and Matt, where Matt is there teaching rifle, and Matt demos these running drills with rifles, and he is very, very fast. So he still has it.
Cupcake in her lolly pocket, whatever he said. I think in his mind, he was getting ready for it, right? He was about to eat a charge, in another room. And then when the door opened behind him, there's just nothing in him for him. So I think that's a difference. I also believe that a lot of these guys think the approach is going to be slow and methodical, right? That it's going to be a move, like a formation up to the target. And I'll tell you, like, from a hostage rescue standpoint, it's never like that. Yeah. It's just not. There's not one thing from that unit specifically, like, even if we walk in on a hostage rescue to maintain the initiative, right, of surprise, but once the commencement of the assault, it's like, it's nasty fast. Yeah. And I think it has to be, right? So going through after the kitchen room, the dark room, I want to hear your thoughts about what happened in that big dark room.
As I recall, you had a weapons malfunction?
After that was in the hallway. So we come into the big dark room. We opened it up, and I went straight, came up on my primary, collapsed to 1 meter off of what was the 3 and 5 guy. They were right off my shoulder. Came to them, then I pushed my gun back to look behind the dead space, and that's when I caught out of the corner of my eye another guy had the door jamb lit up, and there was a guy there. We went back to him and shot him and closed on him. Right. So how did that?
Okay, we'll look at that real fast. Nick got his super duty upper. Well, I'm excited to hear how it performs for you, because those are some of my favorite uppers. But that was basically right where we left off here. So if we go back like 5 seconds, which again, he clears all of this in 5 seconds, right? Opens the door, takes on the guy, pushes him down. Now there shouldn't be, I think he probably knows that nobody's going to be in here because of the fact that they were supposed to breach the door. So he does clear everything with his light, scans everything, steps off like he says. Remember, there's 4 people behind him, so they fill in. And then, yeah, snaps onto target. We'll watch that back in one go. Yep, and then at that point calls out he's jammed, 4 other people going ahead of him.
Did the bad guy there get off 2 shots?
I don't know. Well, so that's the thing. I don't know if that was the bad guy shooting or his buddies, right? Because there are 4 people behind him in that room.
Right, but I would have figured their guns would have been a little bit louder on the microphone, but maybe it's just the placement.
Inside of a house on a crappy 480p upload of whatever action cam that he has.
Yeah.
Maybe not. So let's watch this again. So I don't think he pointed the gun. I think if there's a way to go through it frame by frame, gets that guy down, pushes him out of the way like a gentleman. I don't see a gun, so I kind of think that's one of his other buddies shooting it, but then at the same time, you'd think there'd be a rifle light on him.
Yeah.
Is that him?
Is that a gun? Now. Yeah, that's the gun around the corner. Right there in his left hand.
Okay, yeah, so I think that was him. I think that was him. So I think he did get off a couple rounds there. Just for whatever reason, that I would think that would be the one area, because that you have the door and then you have that back room. That would be the one point you were watching since you've already cleared the rest of the room. So maybe that is a critique, that you should be watching that opening, right? Versus the dead room. Interesting. I know, but we're just about to hear Matt's response to that.
One last thing before you go jump into that. If you are still looking for a single hostage, which was apparently in the back room in that situation, would you not need to be more conscious of your shot placements, trying to hit the guy hiding behind the wall so that way they don't pass through?
I have no idea about that, because like if you're presented with a guy with a gun, you just shoot the guy with the gun, and if it goes through him like that,
No. I'm not saying pass through him. I'm saying a potential miss, possibly blind firing through the wall. He presented himself tucked behind the wall, and then they put a few rounds in. When he's on his way down, those rounds could have passed through the drywall behind him. I'm not talking about passing through him as an individual.
Well, right. So why are you thinking that they were missing, though? Or are you saying that they were blind firing into the wall, or they were firing into him?
Trying to fire into him, but when he's on his way down, I thought it looked like one of them missed and hit the wall.
I mean, I can just pull it back real fast.
Yeah, I could have been missing that, but it looked like there was one or two of the rounds that hit the wall next to him.
So he said angle keys. Oh, look at that. We can go frame by frame. So I don't know if Matt is still shooting.
Are those two paint markers on the wall?
Dude, it's pretty blurry, man.
Yeah, it's too hard to see.
Because I know that right now, Matt's gun is actually jammed. And so he is pulling the trigger. You can hear him like just clicking the trigger and nothing's happening. And then he's like going to say gun's jammed right there. And then 4 other people go past him. So. All right, but let's let Matt talk about it.
Outlook to you.
Back up. I thought that was really good shit. With your immediate action, and let the team keep pushing through, and you got back in the fight really fucking quick.
That's just the Sims, whatever. You can put enough oil on it. So I came up, had engaged him, and then as I would have normally progressed down that hallway, couldn't put the gun back on safe, so lowered it and came around outside of it. No harm, no foul, and then came into the other room. And you even said, "Hey, that room was more set up conventionally." Now understand, like at that point, the two guys that went into that room were our lower IC positions, right? Those are new guys. Like I think it was a 4 and a 5 IC. So doctrinally, like right, they go in, they're tight, they're collapsing, and I believe like they're still like, okay, this room's good. They don't want to make a mistake. They come back out. Right. So now this is the one that kind of gets me. As I come out of the hallway, right? Talk me through what you saw there.
Going the hallway towards the last room?
Yep. So I come out of the hallway and you had a lot of comments, right? Where is it? Hold on, I got
probably something.
Yeah, this is where you called me 50 Shades of fucked up.
Oh.
And it's like, so come out of the hallway, right? It's
I like, listen, insults are funny and whatnot. And, I use them too for different things. And you're a little hyperbolic to try and amp up your video or whatnot. But his demeanor is quite a bit different when actually discussing these things with Matt. Yeah, Pranka got nuts. And that's what you should do. Anytime somebody makes a video on you or says some silly things, write it down and then just point it out, either in a video or in a live like this, and just be like, what do you mean by that?
I always say silly things.
Yeah, I mean, it's what you do, because people, especially if they don't edit themselves down, and this was a very edited video that this gentleman put out, you often contradict yourself. Like, so that 45-minute video that Autonomous Defense put out, right? that could have been like 8 minutes and would have been much less problematic. But
I
if
couldn't
you
find
keep
that one,
talking
by the
for-
way.
It's gone. No, he deleted his whole channel. He deleted his channel. He deleted his Instagram. He's gone. So,
Oh,
he's still shooting and competing, but he's like, I'm just not going to have an online presence. Which, fair enough.
Okay.
I think he'll come back at some point. But
I would like to have him on, but
that was the plan. The plan was to have him on, but then he decided, which getting hate online is not easy to deal with the first time, depending on who you are. But once you go through it, then nothing bugs you ever again.
Dark hallway, and I do not have nods on my helmet. Right, it's a dark hallway, and this is where I think too the understanding, like my understanding of CQB, I will tell you, is completely different than yours. That's not a byproduct. That's not like a positive thing I'm saying about me, but it's unique to my experiences over the time that I've done it. Right, we can't have the same view of it because we didn't work in the same places, and I did it for, as long as I did it, and you did it for as long as you did. But when I come out of the hallway, right, I have to see.
Sorry, I do want to respond to Plastic Guy real fast. So Plastic Guy says, what I don't understand is Pranka can do all these dunks, but the first time the shoe's on the other foot, he goes completely dark. The reason his website and Instagram is down for the moment is because he's not here. He's doing other things. And so his website being up for classes doesn't make sense. His Instagram, you cannot message him. You cannot contact him. All that stuff being down. It will come back up probably in the new year. So a little different.
it did just seem slightly convenient that it happened at that time.
So keep in mind that when he was in that live stream, he was not in America. He was getting paid to do something somewhere else. So he jumped on that live stream last minute after being drunk at a bar on the other side of the world. So
I appreciate the fact that he took the time to sit down and actually attempt to have a conversation.
Mm-hmm. And me and Matt talked afterwards, and it was very amicable. We talked about the blowback and what happened and whatnot, and he agreed to come back on and have a chat. So everything post stream between me and Matt has been peachy keen.
Good deal.
Right, and you make a comment like if you said my light, so my gun is angled down. For my setup, my light is on the right hand side of my gun. Right, it's right handed at 12 o'clock. I light it up. The light 100%. The gun is angled down. The light is hitting the back of his legs. Right, to see where I need to go. Right, to me, I don't consider I'm not muzzling him. Right, I am pointing a gun down. I'm not going to have the gun up. None of that stupid shit. That is not what that building prescribes or anything. Moving down, but you said, why would you do that? Your weapon is on fire. The light is on. Would you guys typically move through the house with your weapon on fire?
Yeah.
That, to me, that's fucking retarded.
Bro, like, that's crazy for me to hear. Like, if you're, just have the gun on safe. Like, duh. I mean, although this is a generational thing, though, I think, because I think that a lot of people who were in maybe a long time ago and who weren't into this like super online tactical firearms culture, like the safety thing coming on and off super fast is like drilled into you, right? And so, and I've had people comment on videos, like you'll see these from boomers and whatnot, being like, if you put your safety on during a transition, right? So if I'm moving from target to target, or moving from position to position and turn my safety on, I will still get people commenting like, that's going to get you killed in the street, son. You never put your safety on. And it's like, what are you talking about? It's a switch. It's right there. You just do this. It's super easy. But some people, it's like, once the gun is on fire, it's on fire forever until you're done, I guess.
Shows like you don't possess and understand. Like, one, you're violating a fucking weapon safety rule. Weapons on safety are up on target with the intention to shoot. Boom. That's day one rifle shit right there. Right? So if you are going through the house with the weapon on fire, like you're asking for, any confined space fighting, you're you're going to muzzle people. There is no way to do it where you're not doing it, right? We got a team full of guys, right? The guy that was at the end of the hallway.
Well, so this is actually a good conversation because me and Hop do not use our safeties the same way, I think, because Hop puts his safety on during emergency reloads, I want to say, which is kind of a meme to begin with, right? Whereas I don't, because the gun is dead, and an emergency reload in this context is going directly back to fire. Usually if it's an in-pocket reload, I'm not even getting off of target. So the safety doesn't need to come on there, at least for me. I don't know about that. But if it's ever a tactical reload, or if you're ever not going back to fire, then the safety's already on. So me and Hop actually use our safeties differently. But more than this guy does. Andrew Vachon for 199 says, this is my safety, people drive me insane. Yeah, no, I agree. 100%. That is quite a strange take. Yeah, Hop says that I do the Pat Mac, because Pat Mac was into that. So, and I think there's even a slight difference, if I remember correctly, in when the safety comes on. So, for instance, Pat Mac teaches to leave the safety on until you are on target, versus most people say that you can come off safe as you are getting onto target. So there's a slight delineation there, right? So as I'm bringing it up to shoot, I know I'm going to shoot, I can flip it down, versus on target, down, shoot, right? So very slight delineations there. Well, so I agree with this, but in the context of a flat range emergency reload, which you should never have in an actual like tactical situation, you should always be tac reloading. And if you're ever tac reloading, the gun's already on safe, right? But on a flat range where I'm doing a 1R1, where the gun maintains pointed directly at the target the entire time, right? And my finger's off the trigger, of course, like putting the safety on for a half second and then back down is kind of useless to me. But in a real situation where you're always tac reloading and whatnot, the safety's already on to begin with, right? It's just slightly different schools of thought.
Wait, he's 6'5", 240 pounds. I'm 6 foot, 230 pounds. Like we don't fit in there, right? Where everybody's got a clear lane and clear sector. So I think from a standpoint, like to me, that's like an organizational thing. If that is what Fast Company at that time, to me, right off the bat, and I know this because of Fast, you guys don't do CQB, right? You train CQB, you 100% train it, but in terms of going up against an armed adversary, I will tell you from my experience, blown out to embassies 2 times in my career, Fast Company was never around. No one was around. If it's an embassy that's being held or under attack, they do not call a Fast Company. Would you agree with that?
I don't know that I have historical knowledge to say yes or no.
I mean,
That's like the worst answer possible. I don't know if I'm equipped to give you an answer there, sir. Well, you were equipped to make a video critiquing him, though. But I mean, kudos to the guy for coming on the live stream. I don't know what he thought was going to happen. Oh, Jonathan, this is a good point. This is something I haven't thought about. Jonathan Segura for 499 says, going back to safe while reloading is also a verification that you didn't get a malfunction. I have actually not thought about that. So you're just putting more information into my brain. I appreciate it. Thank you for the 499.
I think that is a hostage rescue, right? It's a American diplomats, AMSETs inside an embassy that's under attack, a consulate. It's not, I think if you were to look at the order of succession of numbers that they dial, a Fast Company even parked in Sigonella is not getting that job if we're flying to Sigonella. Like, I just don't think that's the case. I think that's the reality of it. You know, right, wrong, or indifferent. It's like you got guys.
Sorry to pause again, but I actually missed a couple, so I apologize. Willie McDuff for 499, thank you, sir, says, how would you do a 1v1 with Sims in full kit? What are the rules? In my mind, like for the GunTuber deathmatch 1v1 thing, I think you would just have some sort of room set up like in a shoot house or area in a shoot house, and you would have position A, position B, and you just say, hey, go in there and do your thing, right? You know, there's going to be one opposing guy. You might even know who it is, or would be more fun, you don't know who your opposing guy is, and you just go in there and, you know, whoever wins, right, for the Simmunition fight. So, which I think would be fun. Purely from a pure entertainment. Nothing more than entertainment, to be clear. Charles Reeves for $10. Thank you very much, sir. Says, appreciate you, brother. Matt is a retired old man with a beer gut, but he would still smoke trench foot. I think that's in response to Trench Grenade, of course. Now, Matt is a phenomenal shooter. Top tier, right? I mean, I believe he is actually a grandmaster. If you watch his rifle shooting, if you watch his pistol shooting, he does things that most of us can only hope to achieve one day with a pistol and rifle, right? So, fantastic shooter. So, I mean, I wouldn't want to go up against him in a competition. Absolutely not.
Just from a resource.
There's two different job sets, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. But you would say from a brief metal perspective, that is the task of the Fast Company, right? Is Neo.
Yeah.
Going to an embassy to get him out. So I think it's like, you know, the non-combatant, a Neo, and then respond outside of, like, Neos are more for, hey, shit's about to get crazy. We're stopping the diplomatic mission, but there's no real threat at that time. Let's get them out, right? And a Neo perspective still is gonna fall, like, I believe, fall to a Mew, right? That's located. They're gonna push the ARG there.
Sure. Yeah. You got way more support, right? A fast platoon deploys 44 dudes deep, and there is no support, right?
Yeah.
There's no logistics, no stamina, except for what you take with you. A Mew has it's a whole fucking Mew. They got all the support that they want.
Yeah. And the fast teams that I saw on their deployments, there was one in Bahrain that I came across regularly. They stayed at, like, their hotel was like Manaya Plaza or something, but they pretty much were charged with, like, the QRF for the ASU there in Bahrain back in the 90s, right? That's kind of how I looked at it. So talk about the hallway, right? So there, right there, I think it's a not.
So that is the one part of the video we actually haven't watched much, because it's definitely the back half. So let's go ahead and pull this up. This is what they're talking about. Right after Matt's gun goes down, and after he clears his malfunction, and now he's like the fourth guy in the stack or something.
Jam, go. Stand up. Stand up.
So I kind of wish we had the perspective of the guy who shot the guy in the hostage room, because they were very close together. So I would have actually liked to see that. Right, because it's the guy in front of him taking a shot. So I don't know if the hostage was already on the bed. Yes, we can go frame by frame. So it's very difficult to see. Okay, so it looks like the hostage guy was already on the bed, and then the guy was just standing up. So he figured out one guy's got a gun, one guy doesn't, and that guy goes down.
Stand up. Stand up. Got clear. Here, you hurt? Walk around him.
And then that's the end of the video right there. All right. Because we haven't watched that before, so that's good reference to have about what they're talking about right now.
It's not understanding, right? You have one way of doing business. Hey, I go in the house, that gun goes on fire, and I'm going to leave it on fire the whole time, right? My gun is not on fire until I'm up on target and I'm about to shoot, right? Maybe I PID as I come in and I'm kind of in the hunt, and I'm sorry I'm making so many SWAT hands right now. I'm going to get chewed up for that. I'm in the hunt. right? And as I'm like, yep, that's a gun. This guy's going to get the business. It goes on, roll safeties, and then engage. But then it's immediately, if there's nothing else that I'm not going to transition to, it's back on safe immediately, right? So I think that's a different mentality,
Right on.
right? And I don't think, honestly, like, I know that is something I've heard from NSW, like, hey, it goes on fire and it stays on fire, right? Do you think that's a holdover from MP5 days?
Probably so.
Yeah, again, that's what we were talking about earlier. It's almost like a different generation. Because nowadays, if somebody at a class or something sees somebody not put their gun on safe, like, you're going to get called out for that, like, instantaneously. Make you do burpees or something. Right? Will Harm says, discussing fundamentals with your critic. Yeah. Cody X says, there's not enough grenades in this conversation. Very true. Very true.
Yeah, because I think, when we had MP5s, right, on the countdown, because of the way the safety was, I know the November models, you rolled the full auto and you stayed that way for pretty much the whole time, and that was something, though, that they quickly tried to figure out to modify those the safeties and weld little fucking like washers on them so you had the thumb rest. But I don't believe that's I don't believe that's where you want guys, like, especially if we're putting information out into the YouTube, kind of the public sphere. Like, would you promote that, like, say, hey, you're gonna talk to guys at survival training, they want to come do some CQB, would you have them go on fire and stay there?
Probably not.
I think
that seems like he immediately caves on the position, and only halfway caves too. He says probably not. Like, the answer should just be like, no, like, please use your safety in a confined space with a bunch of friendlies, please.
it's just a difference of kind of different opinion, different experiences, right? So we go through the hallway, right, and the muzzling thing, that was like a big I think it seemed like you're pretty fired up about it.
Well, so going back to folks that shared the video with me, and perception was, Stoke, man, this video shows the standard of something that I think that we need to try to get after. And so a lot of those conversations may or may not be directed to you and what we see here, but directed to folks out there maybe trying to think about how to implement any form or flavor of CQB at their place, in their location. And if you get into a mindset where you start training and you have habitual or non-habitual or accidental or negligent flagging other people, like, you're going to set yourself up for failure on this side of the house, if that makes sense.
Right. No, 100%. And I think that has to be right. There's weapon safety stuff, and a lot of that comes to, like, weapons on safe, right? You think of it in terms, law enforcement gets crazy with this, and they're the easiest ones to talk about, where they're like, don't flag your buddy, don't flag your buddy. I understand that, and I support that 100%. You don't intentionally flag your buddy. But I also am gonna, like, I'm not gonna put the gun by my head to not flag him. I'll just kind of lower it, right? And that's a nonverbal, hey, my finger's straight off the trigger, the gun is angled towards the ground.
Yeah.
If you need to pass in front of me, or that's the way I would move around people. But saying that, in law enforcement, and guys that have big issues with the flagging thing, cops routinely point guns at people that they don't intend to shoot. So
Sure.
What is the...
Well, so there's a big difference between, like, the rule in practice versus, like, the theory of the rule, right? Is like, never flag someone, never point a gun at someone at all times, right? That's the very instilled basic level of it. But when you're 5-man clearing a house in like 30 seconds, right, and the muzzle brushes, in theory, somebody's leg or something, right? The gun's on safe. These are very highly trained people. It's a little bit different in practice, right? And so, yeah, so it's different, right, than just like on a flat range. The only time I've ever had a loaded gun pointed at me is at a level 1 handgun training class with some old guy who like had some out of the waist or outside the waistband holster. He was there because somebody had bought him the gun, and so he was there just training or whatnot, and probably had never really shot before. And when he would finish a drill, we would walk back, right? And so he would, instead of holstering the gun, he would turn and then holster. And so he flagged the entire class, which is very nice of him. Yeah. Helix92 says, I'd worry about who is flagging me. And people talk about this before, like if you have 5 guys in a vehicle, everybody with rifles, getting out, you want to minimize it as much as possible. But at some point, guns get pointed where you don't want them to go. It is up to the individual person to be trained to a very high level. That is still a safe situation, even if you're quote unquote like breaking one of the rules.
Fucking like, why is everyone so scared of like flagging somebody? If you've got 3 cops in a fucking 10 by 10 room and they just cleared it and they're strong law or whatever, and now they all want to leave, you don't think as those guns get lowered and they're coming out of the door, right, their fingers are straight off the trigger, that those muzzles don't come across feet or whatever. And this is where I think is a good discussion, because it's like, yeah, I don't think you should flag anybody ever. I think that's the goal. You're always going to work to that, right? But is there a time where somebody's going to cross in front of you?
Shit happens.
Right. So that now, how do I need to handle that in a fast, dynamic thing, right? There's kind of twofold, right? I need to be really engaged in what's happening and kind of reading the situation, right? Like where the guy that's standing in the doorway, you kind of.
Well, right. So Matthew J brings up a good point. Not flagging is important, but you also have to break multiple safety rules to end up with friendly fire, i.e. flagging someone plus finger on the trigger. There's actually an extra one there that we kind of talked about it. Not only would your finger have to be on the trigger, but your safety would have to be off. You would have to break 3 rules to friendly fire somebody, right? Now, if you're the type of guy who leaves your safety off, then you've just removed a safety, metaphorically and literally, from shooting somebody that you don't want to, right? So finger off the trigger, safety on, and then of course flag people as never, right? That's the goal, but things happen in a dynamic environment. Amar for $4.99. I saw your post earlier, but I didn't know if that was correct. He says, I don't have a right thumb and I can only actuate the safety with my left hand or my left support hand. I am forced to, quote unquote, this is my safety, unless I'm switching to sidearm. That's interesting. So, like, if you don't have a right thumb, you're using an AR-15. I wonder if there's a way to get either a push button style safety or like a different throw lever so that you can actually actuate the safety with the trigger finger itself.
I have multiple push button safeties, and they all require you to push to actuate safe with your index finger from the opposite side, but to push it on to fire, you have to push with your thumb. Now, I do have a couple of ambi safeties that you can just remove the right side on. You don't actually need
the
it.
left side for him, right? So that it's just the right side, because he would need it on the right side if his right thumb.
Yeah, that's what I meant. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
You can remove just the left side where you actuated with the right thumb.
Yeah, that is
right index finger.
That is interesting, but that's a hyper niche, like relates to like you, right? Which is a problem. But I think there's probably a good way to solve that with a product that's out there, because I mean, like in California where you have the fin grips, you already can't use your thumb to wrap around, right? So there has to be a solution out there for an AR-15. Interesting. You know what? Sorry, I don't want to like dog on you for that, but that's got to be hard to shoot a Glock without having that thumb to wrap around and pinch, because that's they would have to like almost clamp it with your hands.
If you would like to possibly get him on sometime, the no-handed shooter.
Oh yeah, I know the guy as well. Yeah. So I know that there has to be a workable workaround for you for that. So if interested, send me a message because I think there's probably something we could figure out to help you out. So
Yeah, definitely get with us on Discord. Even if John doesn't have something, I think I might even have an ambi safety that would work, that would suit the needs. So we can get you taken care of. Yeah.
Unbelievable. The guys are already bringing out the grand thumb comments. I didn't know it was that painful. All right, here we go.
You critiqued him on engaging from the fatal funnel, right? What he presented was that what was presented to him was the classic hostage shot, right? And I support the decisions he made. He came up there, he lit it up, he's in the hunt, he sees the hostage, he sees one guy, another one, a gun. He takes a little bit of a pause to see, is the geometry working out, right? Because a lot of times I've seen, kind of the trick fuck moves where the hostage taker is in front of the hostage with the gun behind. Like, it's kind of like, hey, are you actually paying attention? And that's kind of
That's funny because that's like trying to trick you up. But I can actually show you exactly what he means there, because we see the guy right here-ish. Yeah, right here. So this is his buddy in front who's going to shoot the hostage taker, not the hostage. So the critique is that he's quote unquote standing in the fatal funnel, whereas he's in this hallway with the worst possible scenario. In this frame, I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 doors, right? This looks miserable. So he opens this door. His buddies are going forward and right. He opens this door, sees the hostage and the hostage taker, and then just determines which one is which, and then takes the shot. I don't know where he's supposed to move, so I don't know what the critique would be here from this gentleman.
Without seeing it, it's hard to tell.
All right, so you can tell that the buddies are going forward and right. He chooses to go left through that door, opens the door, shines his light in there, sees the hostage and the hostage taker, determines which one is which, and then shoots the bad guy.
Stand up! Stand up!
Yeah.
fuck with you training thing that they would do, but he takes time, right? And then he has to deliver, the very low percentage shot on there. At that point, I'm backed up off of him. He goes into the room. I'm lighting it. You see, and you said, there he goes, right in front of the muzzle again. But for me, what I saw, I was like, yep, he's going to cross in front of me. I deactivated my light, lowered my gun down. He walked in front, and then I immediately came back up and put it on the unknown and to get him out of there. And that's kind of where that video ended, right? So one of the things he said, why would you engage from the fatal funnel? And I wanted to ask you, how could he have done that differently, in your opinion?
Well, as I recall, it's a pretty restricted room, pretty small. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bedroom. I mean, American, but 10 by 10 maybe, with a bed, with furniture.
Yeah, I mean, so when you walk in, and that's the thing, right? You walk into a room and you have no idea what's going to be in the room, and everything in there, furniture or anything else, you're going to have to make immediate on-the-spot decisions for, right? Of course, the classic example, or the standard answer would be clear the doorway, clear your corners, but obviously there's a lot of things that are moving fast and you're reacting to. So I don't know. You tell me. What were some?
He says, I don't know. You tell me. Well, you watched the video and you made your critique of him. Come on, sir. So, from what I see, as a again, a what is it? High opinion, low commitment type dude. The guy opens the door, sees a guy with a gun, sees a hostage without a gun, and then shoots the bad guy, right? So looks good to me.
Stand up! Stand up!
Whole thing that could have been done better.
So that one actually we got kind of like good remarks afterwards on it, based off of all the other 8 teams that ran through it. So it was the hit, like what could have been better, like we obviously could have been a little bit tighter. I believe it could have been a little quicker, right? The hang up in the T shape, right? 4 or 5 seconds. I mean, you're talking about an evolution that from start to finish was maybe 25 seconds long, right? From the time we walk in there till the time I'm actually doing the bona fides. That's not on the camera. Doing the bona fides with the PC was like 30 seconds. So I think we could have been a little bit tighter in the big room, right? But we had some furniture and some obstacles that guys were trying to going up over tables, right? And then that was one of the, I think, internal things like, hey, shooting platform, could you have engaged? He's like, no, I couldn't have engaged anyway because the angle wasn't there, right? That was a fight really for 1, 3, and 5 at that doorway. And I think we could have been better at that. But I think the light use was good, right? So the guy that tried to engage us from the doorway, I think he shot 2 or 3 rounds, but nobody got hit, right? Because he was trying to aim at one thing and he had lights on him from the other thing. And then they started hitting them and they were hitting the door jam and the rifle. And that's when I turned on it and I had the most deliberate view on him. So I think like that stuff could be tightened up. Shots were fine. Obviously, a PC wasn't hit or anything like that. So that's mission success. So I don't.
So it's been a minute. We should probably just run through the first part of this again real fast because he's going over everything that happens. Right, there were some incoming fire. None of his team gets hit. The person of interest doesn't get hit, and this whole thing does not take very long. Right, so they get off the bird here, approximately 150 meters.
Jam, go.
So like he said there just a second ago, that was like the one spot where they really got jammed up because his gun got jammed. So he was like stuck there for a second and then he had to get out of the way so that everybody else could go through. So like you said, that probably cost them 5 to 8 seconds. This could have been a sub 60-second run, which would have been really hot. Like, do you guys remember like Modern Warfare 2, how they would have the Spec Ops missions where they would be graded on time? So, like you would get 1 star for a certain time, 2 stars for a better time, and then 3 stars is like the maximum, right? I feel like that would degrade this from a 3-star run to a 2-star run because everything else is fast.
Stand up.
So that was it. So from the first shots fired at 13 seconds, it's approximately 30 seconds later. I think there are 5 oppositional force guys down, and the hostage is safe in about 30 seconds.
Stand up.
And that's that.
I think it was like a perfect run in any way, but I also think it was pretty decent, in terms of that. But it's to me, it's like, one of the things you say, like, hey, if this is these guys or whatever, like, and I really hope it's not, like, this can't be the thing, like these guys are, and you said it, like 50 shades of fucked up. And to be honest, like that doesn't bother me. It doesn't. It's like, I just think it's like is it 50 shades of fucked up because we have different backgrounds or different experiences, or was it specifically 50 shades of fucked up? Like, even
Well, I would still take things back. I think to a couple things, I guess, because it's hard to answer things that are more relatable to you from your side and your perspective going through. I don't know from my end and my perspective what, until we have this conversation, what the actual purpose of the event was, right? And who the role players were, because that kind of changes a few things, and what the actual, who is the audience for the event, and what was the purpose for the video. So there's a lot of things ultimately I don't have honestly got answers for. So when I look at things, I guess from we call it a big army perspective, right? Which I'm sure all the dudes love to hate. I go back to thinking about the training value and how dudes watching this sort of training video can walk away maybe thinking a few things. And one of the things that I think about is dudes going to NTC or JRTC, right? Brigades going down to get tested before they go to the box. Well, every single time they either win straight up or they get reset because some commander fucked up and they get reoriented in order for them to be able to win. So think about your role players. They're firing back at you, right? What would have happened, because there's always risk mitigation in there. Like, even though like you're not wearing a mask, for the role player side of the house, there is risk mitigation. Like, I am sure that there was a brief that said, if you get shot, you better fucking go down, because they're going to steamroll over you if you don't.
Yeah. So what they're told, hey, they're going to shoot you 3 to 5 times, and they're going to shoot you lower in the torso, right? That's where they're going to engage. And what they're told, if you do not react to getting shot, he is going to pick parts. And the hit right after that one, we went same thing at cop. I tagged him 3 times from outside the structure. And when I made entry into the room, he decided he was going to put a couple paintballs into my side. So as I transitioned back to him, what I saw was exposed ear, exposed neck, and I dumped about 6 rounds into his ear. He presented the top of the head, and as I left the room, I gave him 5 or 6 more into his head. And that guy wanted to fight on our exfil HLZ. And by all means, we stopped. I came back, and it's like, yeah, hey, if you want to talk about this, understand that I put 5 70-grain rounds into your chest, right? React to that. If you don't, then I'm gonna put. Now we're playing paintball. I'm a better paintball player than you, dude.
Yeah.
I'm better at everything than you. So I'm gonna put the bullets exactly.
Well, so this is where Matt is like, the side of Matt that people don't necessarily like is where he's like, listen, guy, if you want to play, we'll play, but I'm going to beat you, right? And so, yeah, at the end of if you want to make it like paintball, it's going to be like paintball, right? Where you're just shooting each other for fun. But yeah, if you put 5 rounds into your chest, you're probably not fighting back.
Where I want him to go. This gun doesn't recoil, and you better believe I can do that really fucking fast.
Right.
And so they're told that. But what I find most often, right, and this goes into like real application and also the.
Also, Nimda says, I'm better at anything than you is such typical Matt. The problem is when Matt says that, he's actually correct unless you're some like grandmaster shooter, right? So you may not like it, but it doesn't particularly matter, right? It's like you don't have to like the ad. So people come at me, right, because I can be abrasive and aggressive, like with my scripts and videos and whatnot, right? So if you want to tone police, that's fine, but it's not really what I do, right? Who am I to talk? Hey, you should like be a little nicer, Matt, even though you have the skills to back up what you're saying. So CB says, Pranka is basically like F worrying about the gear in CQB until you can actually have the hard skills for putting bullets where you want them to go. Right. And so that aspect of it is fantastic. But again, on that live stream where he was like drunk and slurring his words and going back and forth to different positions, you know, like within a couple minutes of each other, that's where people can make fun of him.
Training application. If I'm doing like things at a hostage rescue pace, or I'm just, even if I'm using, kind of a combat clearance, but the movement through the structure or into the room, I change the doorway, the sequence of the technique I'm going to use for the doorway, or I'm going to try to.
Matthew J says, maybe I'm a pussy, but UTMs at 1 to 3 yards is just cruel. I mean, that's what you sign up for. You're doing force on force. Don't lose, don't get shot. Guess.
Process more of the room from the outside, but the entrance into the room is the same. What the goal is, I need to make shit happen from an adversarial standpoint faster than real life, right? If they perceive I can get to the back of this house in 15 seconds, I need to get there in 10. Sure. That's to me, that's me using speed as the multiplier that it is, or the modifier that it is, right? Surprise is gone. Yeah. Now, I think we unknowingly, by the way this folded out, right? The decisions were made. Hey, if we hit this as a tube, it's going to be much better than if we come in the middle and we have to split stack and we're sending a team to the right, to the left. I can keep my team together for longer if I go to that open door. And when we did that, as soon as we stepped in there, we regained surprise back because they weren't expecting us to go there. The guy in the corner was looking at the doorway, thinking we're going to come through a closed doorway. And when the team came into the door off, you see him, he just shrugs up and freezes, right? And then the same thing with that. So we using speed to our advantage, we actually gained back a little bit of surprise. And then once we got into the big dark room, it kind of all, went to shit for that one, right? Then they know we're kind of at a choke point. We can only go through one thing. Now it's just a matter of violence of action. Like, can we put our bullets where we want them to go fast?
So someone in the chat says, what's the link to the dude's critique video or the name of his channel? So let me pull this up here. I didn't realize that it was Bill Stoker at the beginning, but I actually did pull up his channel. I tried to find his critique video, but I couldn't find it. So it is very possible, if it's this gentleman, right, just without a beard. I believe it's this gentleman. I could be wrong, but I believe it's this guy just without a beard. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not this guy. I'm trying to find him. I was told it was this guy. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm off, but I couldn't find the video. So maybe I'm smoking crack. Because I don't see a beard anywhere. Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not this guy. But it looks like this guy just plus a beard. But I don't see a beard in any of these thumbnails. Maybe I'm off. Maybe it's not this guy. So I do not have a link to the original video. It kind of looks like that guy, though, doesn't it? Like the eyes and the nose and everything? Okay, Jay Swatterson69 says it's on his Stoker-matic channel. It's the same guy. Okay, let me see if I can find that real fast. Oh, it is. Okay, it's this guy. Here we go.
Hey, team, welcome back.
So it is the same guy, because he just has a beard now. So let's see if I can find it here. So let's just say Matt. Oh, there it is. He does have it. Yeah. 9 months ago. This is the original video. Which, man, I don't want to go through it after Matt's already roasted the guy, but I will post this in chat, and then I will go here and pin it. So that is the link to his video, pinned in chat. All right, back to here.
Faster than the adversary. And that's kind of the goal, I think, the overarching goal of what we were looking at for that. But I think in terms of what happens all the time, right? In the civilian world especially, right? Civilians love to gravitate towards, a guy like yourself or other guys, other former veterans. Hey, I've got CQB, because you said in your initial kind of the bio data of that video, right, that you have more operational and organizational experience doing CQB than kind of anything else that you.
Oh, that's a rough way to open up that video and then get called onto a live stream and then get roasted for over an hour. So this was, I believe, an Instagram live stream. So I would love to have access to that chat. Like, to have that chat playing on the side of this video would be amazing. Jonathan Velez for $5 says, thanks for doing all these lives the last few months. Some is fun and some is educational. Yeah, so they'll kind of be a mix. So if we have a really good topic like this that was sent to me, fantastic. And again, I hope to have Matt on and we can discuss civilian marketing CQB stuff, because that is a big push in the civilian world where people think they see cool people doing a cool thing. And then Matt's like, no, guys, that's all BS. You don't need that. It would be fun to have him on and chat about all that sort of stuff, because like I call out bad products, Matt calls out bad training and, you know, fluff nonsense type stuff. So I think that would be a good merging of those worlds. Don't let that go to your heads. But yeah, a mix of fun and educational content should be good. Yes, I will read some of the comments, both on the Delta Force video, on this video that we're watching right now, and on the Bill Stoker. I think that would be good to end with.
Good done. Right. So when people hear that, it's like, okay, cool. That's a pretty bona fide right line on the resume, right? This is where the bulk of your training and development resides, and in understanding of information is in CQB, right? That's how I took that statement. So when guys hear that, but really in reality, it's like you had a 6-week CQB class, right? Or is that how long the shooting package is?
CQB school itself is 6 weeks.
It is 6 weeks long, and then that's it. That is the. Did you ever go through another? Like, did you go to Sephardic or another like CQB school?
No.
Right. And I think, like, for my initial response, to that, it's like, okay, there's experience there. I would say there is a level of experience, but the currency on it is super low. Right. We deal with like experience and currency. You can be experienced. Hey, I did this for 20 years, but I haven't done it for the last 10 years. So experience is through the roof. Currency is super fucking low. Or guys that say, I've only been doing this for a year, right? But I do it every single day for 8 hours a day. Okay. Well, the experience is low, but the currency is high.
Right. So this is what I was talking about earlier with the nuanced position, right? 20 years of training, 20 years ago, not that relevant. If you're doing something for a living right now, even if you have a lot less experience, that might be much more valuable to what people are doing right this second. The other stuff might be interesting as like a historical context, as a frame of reference, but like the modern up-to-date stuff is probably what you should actually be relying on. Not, hey, this guy, like you said, this guy went to a 6-week school 20 years ago. It's like versus a guy who's like, no, I was just jumping out of a helicopter, right? A little bit different in terms of the quality of information that they have.
Right. This guy's going to be polished, at least for what he knows. And then you have guys that were like, at the unit, it was 10 sessions a week, right? Relentless schedule, AM and PM, Monday through Friday. You're either on the range or in CQB. Right now. Imagine doing that.
So I am actually going to have some drone operators on, Mr. Nimda, if you're asking. So if modern training, when are you going to start reviewing quadcopter FPV drones? Well, I'm going to be getting an FPV drone, and I'm going to have some actual drone operators, one who has experience training people in Ukraine. So look forward to that, because that is incredibly relevant.
Over, like, I consider myself, I was a visitor there. I was there for 12 years. There were guys that were working there when I showed up that had been there for 5 or 6 years, that when I retired, they were still on active duty there, right? Yeah. So now you think of, like, what do you think in terms of experience versus currency when a guy's been doing this 10 sessions a week for over a decade, right? With no resourcing problems, right? Anything he wants, he gets.
Right.
Multiple venues. None of it is not live fire CQB, right? If you go off site and you're training, yes, it's stims, force on force, stims against paper, but the bulk of the training that we're doing, it's full 360. Yeah, you're blowing, 40, 50 charges a week, right? External breaches, internal breaches, right? It's kind of sky's the limit in terms of training. So I think that's important to understand. Like, as I like the conversations, man, and I hope you don't feel like it's not a dig on you, but it would be, I look at it's the same way if I watch some Neil deGrasse Tyson videos and then I try to engage him in a debate about what he's been working on his whole life.
Do you think that he would engage you?
I think he would. I think he would say he would probably.
Somewhat of a bad cringe example, right, with Neil deGrasse Tyson, but kind of it's him elevating himself to be like the top of the stack, let's say, and yeah, which in this context kind of makes sense, right? It's like this guy has some CQB training like 20 years ago versus somebody who does it for a living now, and you made a public critique of my training with my guys, so I'm gonna, destroy you on this live stream.
Say, correct me on.
I want to have Mike. I messaged Mike to come talk to me about the Mark 1 on a stream, but he didn't get back to me. So yeah, I have thoughts.
A lot of things like, hey, that's not. But it would just show like you could.
You actually
what?
Posted something on Instagram and said, "Yo, Neil, the world is flat." That Neil would reach out and say, "Hey, man, let's have a conversation."
No, probably not.
Probably
I don't
not.
think he would.
So,
but
I'm glad we've had this conversation, and I think it's been open and very respectful. I hope both ways, because I see that we're only going down to 2 minutes or a couple minutes, anyways. But why did you feel to have this conversation? Like,
because I'm in the training world, right? In the training space, and one of the things I watched for over a decade when I wasn't on social media, right? I would get videos sent to me, and the amount of what I perceive, this is Matt's view, of just bad information, there's way more than there is good. Or when you have guys that are self-promoted like subject matter experts that have virtually no experience in what they're teaching, right? It's an experience. So I think it's valuable to where I've engaged, like you're not anybody. It's like, hey, let's do a live about it. I like the live conversation because there's nowhere, it's unscripted.
Yeah.
Correct, 100%. Me and Matt are in agreement in this. If you can get somebody on a live to chat and then, bring them up, you have your examples, you have your written statements or whatnot, unless they just click the leave button, they can't run away, right? So in that context, I like it a lot. I also like video responses where you just go point by point, because video responses are essentially written debates just in visual format. So for instance, somebody makes a bad video, I can critique it in point by point, put up my video, somebody else can then look at that and go through that and counterpoint and whatnot. So I like both. I like the video responses and the lives. For entertainment value, the lives are almost certainly better. For the quality information, I think maybe video responses or, again, pseudo-written debates are a little better, but I understand why, yeah. Internet blood sports, that's it. Internet blood sports rules. And a lot of the times, again, if you watch the original video that this other Bill gentleman did, the attitude is very different than when somebody's on a live stream. Very different.
Right. I do it the same thing. I called you. I was like, hey, is there anything that's off limits? What don't you want to talk about? I don't want it to be it's not like a fuck off session, but I think the conversation is good, because when the conversation happens in the comment section, it usually stops like, well, you just don't understand the context. It's like, well, hey, motherfucker, I didn't make the video. The context I have to go on is what you put out, right? So I that's why I reached out to you, and it was actually guys like, hey, do you want me to see if he has a live? It's like, yeah, what's your ID? I think on IG gave you my number, and I was like, hey, you made a video, you've got some strong opinions. I have some opinions about that video. I think a conversation would be worthwhile, right? And
I hope it was.
Yeah, I hope it was. I mean, guys that we're listening. We'll see. They're going to cut us off. Bill, I really appreciate you doing it. I'm going to hang this one on Instagram for a couple days. See what happens with it. Guys can watch it. Dude, I really appreciate you reaching out. And I've been like stalking your page, a lot of the survival stuff, because I'm kind of into that too. It's interesting. But thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
See, Pranka, for all of his attitude and whatnot, is a very smart, calculated man. So when he talks about stalking this guy's other videos, like, he's not joking. So that I know when I have him on, he is going to have watched some of my previous content. So I am sure he will have some wonderful things to say to me. So it's time to be prepped. You know what I'm saying?
Will he though?
I think so. Yes.
I didn't
'Cause I
think
think
any
that-
and his buddies watched YouTube.
When he's going to go, it's different, not in general, but if he's going to go on a live with me and have a discussion about what happened and whatnot, he is absolutely going to do his research. And remember, he is not just him. There's like 60 people behind him. If you go back and watch our live together, when he's saying my phone is blowing up because this is getting posted everywhere, he's not joking. He has people messaging him like, you're not coming off good. This is going bad. Please don't do this, right? Or something to that effect. I don't know exactly what was going on, but he's not joking about when he pulls up his phone like in that and says, I'm getting text messages from everybody that this is going terribly. That actually happened, right? Because he is like the public figure, quote unquote, to a lot of these people and organizations. So all right, well, let's look at some comments, shall we? This has got to be good. Respect given at end. Bill ate his words with a smile. Matt showed respect at the end. This is the 3344. Which moment was this?
Would you guys typically move through the house with your weapon on fire?
Yeah, he was waiting to ask that. The whole, yeah, I have my safety off the entire time. Little sketch. Yeah, so this guy asks if Matt was the assaulter, who was the POV that we had. Yes, he was. High school linebacker talking to Ray Lewis about pass blocking and blitzing. Yep. A dentist trying to tell a cardiac surgeon how to perform open heart surgery. Very similar. Yeah. Yeah, and then you have this, because this is how Matt comes off a lot of the time, right? This guy comment has 10 likes, which for this video is relatively high. Delta or not, Matt is pretty arrogant. And 23 replies underneath. Comment right below, 24 likes. You're joking, right? Do you not know the background of this video? All the crap Stoker was talking, he was absolutely a lot nicer than most folks would be to a huge shit talker. Yeah, because remember, the only reason they're having this is because there is a, 15-minute critique video on Matt and his team during a, 45-second, training exercise, basically, right? Now, the comments on this video are also relatively good. Dude sprinted to that house in full kit faster than me getting off the couch and going to the fridge. Yeah, very fast. Homie just speed run and gunned that entire Op 4, LMAO. Normal guys. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. How many times have you guys heard that? Delta guys. Fast is fast, faster is fastest. Very true. This new Ready or Not update looks sick. I'm not running to my death. I'm running to someone else's. That's a good one. When you play the same mission for the 100th time, very true. Again, like it's almost like the Modern Warfare 2 Spec Ops mode where you've run the mission so many times, you're just trying to get to the right time. I'd like to imagine the HR is for human resources. Somebody in that building has been sexually harassing another unit member, so they sent the HR team in. Yeah, that's good. Stop, I dropped my croissant. Yep, quickest CQB I've ever seen. One of the principles of CQB is surprise. Taking it fast can be effective sometimes, assuming there are no traps. New CSGO operation looks like it's worth the money. Yeah, very, very good video. And then let's check out the comments on the critique video, shall we? Oof. Top comment, or the first one I see is, there's still time to delete this. Was never so useful a phrase. Oh boy. Imagine comparing yourself, a pre-GWAT peacetime Whiteside Marine, to a Det 1 CAG operator that was operational throughout GWAT. Holy F. Imagine being so arrogant that you feel comfortable criticizing Delta dudes going through the thing that they specialize in. Again, everybody's open to critique, but once you do, like, the pushback's going to be there, right? So have your how does it say, have your baskets in a row or have your eggs in order, something like that. I don't know. That's right. Matt set you straight. You had no argument at all. I think half of Ben's or Bill's arguments in the live stream was essentially, well, looking up at the sky. Lol, the Marine who knows hostage rescue tactics better than CAG. Okay, buddy. Imagine critiquing a tier 1 dude starting with this one time at CQB camp. Yeah, 6 weeks class makes you a CQB instructor. Boy, did this one backfire. Your training is decades past its expiration date. You have a high school level understanding of CQB. CAG has a PhD level understanding of CQB. So, why is it always conventional Marines / former conventional Marines calling out Delta on CQB? Ignore this video completely. And a lot of what Matt said in that live is like, we're not in the same world. Like, what you were trained to do in your time is not the same as what we do now. It doesn't resemble the same thing. It doesn't exist in the same space. You say you do CQB because you trained it 6 weeks, 20 years ago. I say I do it because I'm practicing it right now, right? And I've also done it like operationally, right? Or whatever you want to call it. So just a worlds apart. Now, originally, before I had these two videos, yeah, this meme is very relevant now. I'm about to end this man's whole career. There were so many other good videos on the Sofit channel that I showed off at the very beginning of the stream. And originally, we were going to go through some of these. It's mostly Matt Pranka, Ben Stoker, Mike Panone. So I think Mike Panone's actually on the thumbnail, but we're not actually going to get to any of his videos because we're already 2.5 hours in. But maybe we will save this for a later point in time because I have all of these. But essentially, it's discussions with different people on very specific topics in very bite-sized formula. So this was actually going to be a very positive video going over some of the best clips from the most knowledgeable people in the industry, right? Which happens to be these guys. You may not like that. You may not like their attitude, but they don't care about that. So I thought that would be a good thing to go through. At this point, though, 2.5 hours in, we'll see if there's anything interesting to respond to in the chat. And if not, we will call that a night. Poor old timer isn't as sharp as he used to be, if he ever was. Yeah, Sofit is great. Yeah, if you want to, go ahead and check out the Sofit channel. It's essentially just a repository of clips from different Instagram lives and videos from some of these guys that don't exist anywhere else, as far as I can tell. So go ahead and check that out. Actually, let me, while I'm sitting here, why don't I put that in the chat so you guys can do that.
Can you pull up the one that you sent me a little bit ago?
Which one?
Where he was basically discussing the tactics that he learned in 1992.
Are we talking about... shoot. Let me see if I can find that one.
I think I got
But
it.
I don't want to go over that one tonight. We will go over that later. It's 2.5 hours in. I kind of want to go on a walk before it's 0 degrees outside. So, yeah, and in these videos, you have other perspectives, right? Because Ben isn't a tactics guy. He's a shooter guy. So a lot of this stuff is the hard skills that Matt talks about, plus, like, you know, the other, like, intricacies of all this sort of stuff. Mike Panone, also fantastic shooter. So it's interesting to hear all these top level guys give their opinions on things versus like somebody like me, right? Who's just an average Joe for all intents and purposes. I shoot a lot, but that's about it. So Richard, before we go, you got anything?
Just have the 360-degree shoot house coming from Tim Kennedy's stream that we did last week. I have it condensed down, and that's going to be going up tomorrow. You guys would really be helping us out if you watch that. That'd be a great Christmas present for me. Aside from that, I am in the process of hopefully filming some shorts that will be going up as original content, but that's going to be a couple of weeks out. Aside from that, just follow me over on the Out of Focus Clips channel, and please join the Discord. I do a bit of trolling and shit talking over there occasionally, but we like to have a good time. We like to have a laugh.
Yeah,
that's
no,
about
it's a great
it.
time. Join the Discord. Check me out, Instagram, all that sort of fun stuff. This is actually something I want to mention before we end. Ben Steger on his channel does, as Andrew mentioned, he has some lives with Matt and Joel Park and a bunch of other good people on his channel. And he also has full training classes. So if you ever wanted to dry fire along with one of the best in the biz, do that. That's what I do. So I'm actually an hour into this video right now. This is just the last one that I pulled up, and it's just you just dry fire along with some of these training classes, and it's a good time. So with all of that out of the way, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I will see you in the next one. God bless.